Howdy, welcome to the Shatter the Script podcast where we debunk the mainstream media. I'm your host, Jared May, and this is another edition of the Shatter the Script podcast. I'm your main attraction. You'll get me for 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes over that, sometimes 90 minutes, depending on how heated I get. But I appreciate you guys having y'all being in here for today. I've been doing a lot of catch-up recently with golf, tournaments, traveling out to San Antonio, so I'm finally back in the sticks. Back in the saddle. We got our Stats and Scars episode out on Thursday. Our Challenge the Script late. We got it out on Friday. Our Challenge the Script late on Saturday, but we got it out, and guest Turner Ani was able to come in there and give us a good show, so I appreciate him sacrificing his time to come out there and have a good time on the Xbox. I hope you guys enjoy that and learn from things that we do on the game and translate it to your own dynasty or road to glory, whatever it is. So, of course, you got me today. For about an hour, and I'm going to go in and, of course, shatter the script. So I'll kind of highlight some topics before we get started that we've already covered. We went into depth over our 3 college football picks from yesterday, and then we also, of course, covered our injuries and stat analysis while we were missing the medical guys. So people got some insight on Joe Mixon, Malik Neighbors, and some highlight players like that. But now here comes, the real stuff. This is why we attack controversy on this show. And, one of the things that we wanted to attack today on a list of Shatter the Script items, last week I did one. I talked big about the quarterback epidemic in the NFL. And it's still going to be a problem. It's still going to be a point of emphasis going forward on the podcast for sure. I think I really hit the nail on it, especially with the college football aspect, just translating college athletes to the NFL. And they always say there's trends in football and it starts in high school and college coaches steal from high schools and NFL teams steal from colleges. And so that's why NFL is turning into a college offensively ran organization. However, you still have to be able to read a defense and throw a football. And so I'll be attacking that as the year goes on. But for today, like I was mentioning, we got a lot of news. So the 3 highlights I wanted to talk about are Davante Adams with the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to be talking about the trade deadline, some other candidates, but why he's requesting a trade and what the pickle he's got himself into. The Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen drama war that's about to infuse in the media. A lot of people are unaware of it. They're just kind of looking at it, this is a good game on Sunday, but there's more to it. And then the Cam Newton confronting Shatter Sanders on the field, the former Panthers Super Bowl appearing quarterback and MVP appearing highlight reel independently branded Shatter Sanders on the field. And then the NFL overtime rules. I'm going to hit the nail on that one probably pretty hard. And, of course, you got my couple features, the 2020 vision. And we're going to end things off with my in-depth analysis of my Texas A&M Aggies hosting the number 9 ranked Missouri in College Station. As you can see, I got the old Aggie ring on. Class of 2022. Here we go. I need to have some decor up here for you guys. That way, I rep the brand. Ironically, I'm wearing a Nashville hat that's flipped backwards, so that way I don't get too much heat for it. But let's get going with the Shatter the Script. That way I'm not boring you guys with an intro for too much longer. But yeah, okay, here we go. So Davante Adams, man, this has been an ongoing problem ever since he kind of chased down Derek Carr with the Raiders. And they've been best friends ever since Fresno State back in college, which is, I'm getting old, but a long time ago. And you're kind of still chasing after it. He left Aaron Rodgers where he had his most success of his career, and everything just started to go really, really downhill once he left the Green Bay Packers organization. And the Raiders, over time, they've had, I talked a little bit about election year Derek Carr, but they've had some decent years, but they really haven't had any good years or great years at that. Even with some primetime players. I mean, they've got some key attributes, like Max Crosby, but outside of that, they're still a dying franchise that's still looking for redemption in Las Vegas. Of course, they used to be in Oakland. You got the Athletics moving out to Vegas. They won their final home game versus the My Texas Rangers, of course. Funny how that lines up. Shout out to the Astros losing in the first round. But you're chasing after Derek Carr, who, quarterback-wise, it's a fun guy to throw with. He throws one of the greatest deep balls in the league, I would say. It doesn't mean he's this phenomenal quarterback, but he's a great leader. He's a franchise guy, and he went in there with confidence that I'm going to get the football. But ever since he's been over there, you've seen coaches in and out. You got John Gruden, you got Antonio Pierce, you've got I think it was McDaniels before that, and it's just been a coaching carousel. And so that played into part of why he, looking back, is probably like, man, shit. Like, I thought I was making the right decision, and now I'm stuck in this hole to where I got to fake a hamstring injury this weekend. Yeah, he's out. So, and demand a trade, which, by the way, he never officially requested a trade. They talked about making business decisions, and there was some politics involved in between that, but there wasn't anything official saying that he was requesting a trade. Is he going to get traded? Yes. I don't know when, but that's something that fantasy owners and their organizations are going to have to determine. But this is one of those things where you're never going to know until it happens. I mean, he picked his 5 favorite teams or whatever it is. I know he had the Jets and the Saints and a couple other teams in there. But if you were going to pick, a team for Davante Adams to join, what would you pick? Rhetorically. I would choose the Commanders. And my reasoning for that is that that's a team that can probably withstand your ginormous contract that you signed, where I believe it's close to $30 million or north of it over this year and next year. You have a possibility, or you have the potential to go there not just to be a one-year rental, but to play 2 or 3 years in the back half of your career. You're already 31 years old, alongside Terry McLaurin. And with a prestigious young quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who's really making a name for himself, he's looking great. They're 3-1, looking to go 4-1 this weekend. That's the spot that I think that he fits in greatly with. I mean, Dan Quinn has got some rebuilding to do a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. But in terms of Cliff Kingsbury, that's one of those slant and gash, stop and go, double move, one read type things where you could get the football 6 to 7 times a game and maybe find the end zone. That's my landing spot for Davante Adams. But this whole argument that, like picking sides between Davante Adams or the organization, or where does his loyalty is always for sale? Well, no, his loyalty has always really been with the Packers and with his guys. Rodgers was his guy. Derek Carr was his guy. He's always picked that kind of loyalty. And we always talk about the NFL as a business. Davante Adams is a veteran. He knows that it's a business. He's going to have to find a way to navigate this on his own along with his agent to where he finds the most comfortable spot for him to end his career, because for a great player like him, a Hall of Famer like him, he doesn't want to spend the last couple of years of his career, the last bit of great athleticism and great playmaking ability that he has left on a dying franchise who has Gardner Minshew and Aiden McConnell at quarterback. He does it. I wouldn't. And so if you're taking anyone's side, you got to take the player's side on this one. And then the Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen drama going on here. I mean, of course, over the past 2 or 3 years, you've had this Diva drama going on, and who's the bad guy, who's the villain. They're painting Stephon Diggs as the villain, and Josh Allen never does anything wrong because he has white skin, and he plays for the Buffalo Bills, who their fan base is predominantly white, and they break tables and all this stupid nonsense that ESPN and the media starts to twist. And so obviously my responsibility for you guys to come in here and debunk that for you guys. You're welcome. Let me just move this extra mic out of the way for the camera. And you've got a great matchup this weekend between the Houston Texans and the Buffalo Bills. And the Houston Texans already had their bad loss, and the Buffalo Bills had their bad loss last week on Sunday Night Football to the Ravens. And so this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can look at it and go, this is a great matchup. I think the Bills take this one, like I mentioned in the Stats and Scars episode. And yeah, I'm riding high on the Bills. I'm a little bit, I guess you can call me a little bit biased, but I just trust Josh Allen. That they've already had their game where they're like, all right, we're back down to earth. Let's level the playing field out. We're missing Khalil Shakur. We got to get different guys involved, play team football. Team football always beats individually branded football almost every time, or if they should. As long as they show up and they execute their roles. So you're going to have guys like Mac Hollins and Keon Coleman step up. Dalton Kincaid is going to have to be big in the middle of the field and take away pressure off the outside. James Cook's going to have a monster of a game out of the backfield catching the football. Their committee back was going to have to get rolling. The Texans are missing Joe Mixon, as you mentioned before. But my point is, in getting after this game, is that once this game happens, you're going to see the media take this stance of Stephon Diggs versus Josh Allen, who won the trade type thing. And is Josh Allen really who we think he is? And there's going to be some idiots doubting if he's a great quarterback. And you had those voters from last year say that he was the most overrated quarterback, which is absolutely freaking insane. But you're going to have this narrative come out. And I want you guys to be prepared for it, because the narrative, this is just the dance. This isn't the end of the dance, I should say. This is the intro. And they're both AFC teams. They both look like playoff teams. The Jets haven't gotten shit together. The Dolphins look like absolute crud. The Patriots are nowhere close to being a playoff team with Jacoby Brissett, obviously. The Texans are in a very weak division. The Colts are not what we thought they were. The Jaguars are worse than we ever thought they could be. And the Titans have crashed out cocaine Will Levis as their quarterback, who was wronged by Gia Duddy. And now you have these two weak divisions where the Houston Texans and Bills are clear favorites. They're going to be in the playoffs. Are they going to be matched up? That's when the dance ends, right there. And so it's going to be a 2-week spiel. You're going to see it on X. You're going to see it on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Josh Allen without a number one receiver, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the year, they're going to come at it again in the playoffs. And so the defining moment here is Josh Allen already won this. The first three games against the opponents that he played, granted one of them was the Jaguars, but the role that they got on in the first three games is what proves to me that it doesn't matter anymore what kind of team you throw to Josh Allen. He is the Superman of your team. And be careful, because there's a lot of receivers, and I'll tie this back into kind of what I missed in the previous segment. There's a lot of people that are on the market for wide receivers. Amari Cooper from the Cleveland Browns. You've got T. Higgins from the 0-3 Bengals. If they go 0-4, somebody's got to go so they can pay their big man Jamar Chase. Oh boy, what happens if Buffalo Bills all of a sudden wind up with T. Higgins and Khalil Shakur and Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman and James Cook? Hello. And you're looking at the Mahomes ordeal, obviously the big bad wolf in the AFC for everybody. And I'm still not counting them out, but they're injury riddled right now. This is your chance to get in front and once again get that number one seed in the AFC, because your division is weak, and beat the Texans if you play them in the playoffs. And if they make it, God forbid, to end the dance and say, I never needed you. I never was the type of quarterback that needed a diva. Yeah, I've got a diva for a girlfriend, Haley Steinfeld. But no, I'm just a normal guy. I'm a 0-star quarterback coming out of high school who proved himself at Wyoming, who proved himself in the NFL as a rookie and as the first 2-3 years, who proved himself in the playoffs, and is going to prove himself once again this year. Don't buy that crap. Doesn't matter whose side you take. You can take Diggs' side because you like him as a fantasy wide receiver, but in the end of the day, the diva stuff translated over to the Texans. These receivers, the two that I mentioned, Amari Cooper and T. Higgins, you also got Deontay Johnson with the Carolina Panthers. Just like to throw a name out there. Those guys could be on the move, man. I'm telling you. Watch out. The Bills, no one's talking about them for a trade candidate. And I'm not aware of their cap space, but I mean, by golly. So yeah, be prepared for that. Then you got the Cam Newton confronting Shadur Sanders midfield, looking like a Cherokee Indian. And I mean, no offense to the Cherokee people. Back in the day, I'm sure we would have been at war. But I'm totally kidding. But, this sort of thing is just annoying. If I was a quarterback, I mean, like in college under Deion Sanders, who gets a lot of media hate, obviously, and attention, And the son takes the bulk of that, or the half bulk of it. It's a 50-50 deal. And he kind of puts it on himself, like I've mentioned, because he's individually branded. Did something that I thought that Shatter Sanders would never do. And that is tell the guy to fuck off. So you're playing UCF, who at the time was is either 3-1 or 3-0, with KJ Jefferson, the transfer from Arkansas, coming in there to their house. You're in the Big 12 now at Colorado. You've gotten a lot of hate. You barely escaped by versus Baylor on a Hail Mary. You're trying to prove the doubters wrong. You're entering the draft this next year. You need to be about business. When you step on that field and you put that helmet on, you put those pads on, you say to yourself, time to get it going. Nobody get in my way. I'm locked in for this game. No distractions. And that's exactly what he did. I think Cam Newton and them played like 7-on-7 together before college or some stupid shit. But he talked about it. I was going to play the video, but it's like a 7-minute video of Cam Newton going on a rant, explaining himself on his own platform, which the 4th and 1 show that he has, I've actually kind of enjoyed because he said some fun stuff. But Cam's just kind of a goofball. Like, he's just kind of, he shows up in this weird-looking outfit like a villain from the Batman comics and dabs you up midfield during your pregame warm-up. I'll go back to what I was saying earlier to when I got sidetracked. If I'm a quarterback, I'm telling you to screw off too. Get out of my face. Talk to me after the game when we're drinking Gatorade and having a protein bar and I'm eating Papa John's on the bus on the way home. Don't talk to me when I'm in my pregame routine, pregame rhythm. I got a game to win. I'm 3-1. I got to make it. I want to win my conference. So I'm proud of what Shatter, after all the hate, I guess you could say, and the criticism criticism is a better word, that I've given Shatter Sanders. He's 2 for 2 on his last media moments, if you will. The last time being the Colorado State one, saying, hey, you talked all that shit and we just bodied you on live television and now you want to come up and dab me up? Yeah, whatever. I like that competitiveness. And then you follow it up the next week with telling Cam Newton to get off the field. And they had some ulterior conversation off the field afterwards that I think he went on the rant for, which, like I said, I was going to share it. I'm not going to have you sit here and listen to Cam Newton for 7 minutes, but it's just weird to me to be so aggressively interactive with a quarterback. As a quarterback yourself, who dealt with the headlines at Auburn as a Heisman quarterback, who dealt with the headlines as the MVP at Carolina, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't understand. Like, I hope Cam Newton would understand that move from Shatter Sanders. The media and NIL has definitely changed the scope of how much attention we give college athletes these days, like I covered in the last podcast. But don't be a clown. Just don't. I mean, you're an NFL guy. You're not going out there like, why do you care so much what a college player thinks of you anyway? It's just nonsense. And then you got the NFL overtime rules to wrap up my Shatter the Script segment. And, this one's funny because it's like, we watched on Thursday Night Football, which was a great game, by the way, the Buccaneers versus the Falcons. And both these teams are very evenly matched, and it showed during the game. And you had Baker Mayfield balling out. He didn't throw for as many yards as one would think, but you had Baker throw 19 of 24, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 6 carries for 42 yards. And then you had Kirk Cousins, who has become just this lights-out primetime guy all of a sudden. Look at I think he's played 3 primetime games and played well. He lost to the Chiefs on some bull jive, but he was 42 of 58, over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. He threw a pick, but 4 touchdowns. Spreading the ball over the place. Drake London, amazing game. Darnell Mooney has proven that once he has a quarterback that can read a defense, he actually is a wide receiver too, a lot like Christian Kirk category type guy. But my argument here is that between the teams, it's the fact that we've seen this time and time again. And my Shatter the Script statement is, it is time to remove the NFL overtime rules. It's time. You have got to do something like college. It's killing football. And there's nothing but negative comments thrown out into social media every time there's an overtime game, because 75 to 80% of the time, the first team that gets the ball wins the game. As we saw, you're playing a fifth quarter. So especially when the last drive of the game, the losing team is on defense. So the Buccaneers in this case, the Falcons drive down the field and kick a field goal as time expires to tie it up, send it into overtime. So your defense just gashed themselves on a 2-minute drill. Then you win the coin toss, and you got to go right back onto the field, almost like what is it, a safety, but like almost like just back-to-back drives. Like, oh, okay, we forced a punt, get right back out there. We're going to skip the offensive segment without a fumble. It's just right back onto the field, and you expect a stop. And so they throw to this random receiver, Hodge, who takes it to the end zone, and that's it. You don't get to see anymore. That's the game. And so Baker Mayfield, I wish I had the picture, is just sitting there like, dog, are you serious? Like, I had the lead. I did my job. And then you took my job away from me. And where else did we see this from? Oh, right. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills a couple years ago I believe it was the AFC Championship. When we all thought it was Josh Allen's year, because I think he scored 2 or 3 times in response to Mahomes, and then with 13 seconds left, Mahomes ties it up, gets the ball in overtime, and Josh Allen never moves from the couch. I mean, it's just nonsense. And then now, look at college, man. I mean, this is why people are starting to migrate towards the college football atmosphere, because when overtime hits, it's first possession, scores, the other team gets another chance, but they have to respond with a touchdown. That second overtime, the team that had the ball second that responded gets possession. If they score a touchdown, they have to go for 2. If they score a field goal, well, then the other team needs to score a touchdown to win. 6 points, game over. But then with both teams scoring and having to go for 2, it creates this equalizer that determines a great winner, a fair winner. But it also gives both teams the opportunity to actually get in the game and throw both quarterbacks on the field. I mean, hell, if you watch that Georgia-Alabama game, and let's say Georgia tied it up 41-41 at the end of the game, and then they went into OT, and Jalen Milroe got the ball after Georgia came all the way back from that way, and from that deficit, and Jalen Milroe goes in there and scores a touchdown like first play, and game over. You don't get to see the Georgia Bulldogs go right back after it. It's just dumb. It's nonsense. It's dumb. And so the NFL has got to change this. And, they're already taking a lot of heat for all their stupid rule changes, like the kickoff return. Eventually, you're going to see the kickoff go completely away. And if you notice, you got to land it in this landing zone. The Cowboys are one of the few teams in the league that kind of just squib it so that they do return it, because they're an odd special teams outfit. But you've got this group of committee at the NFL that is just butchering the NFL. It's woke. It's tarnishing real football, where we can spear Devontae Smith after being dragged 20 yards across the field by a defensive tackle and 3 other tacklers and fine him $4,600. But when Josh Jacobs, the running back for the Packers, lowers his head, we're going to fine him over $45,000. It just makes no sense. And don't even get me started on how this affects defenses mostly. Every rule that the NFL has put in has benefited the offense. When is it time to provide equalizers across NFL and say, well, the defensive group needs a little help too, because they're literally playing on thin ice, whereas the offense is playing with ice skates, if you want to dig that analogy. But yeah, I mean, that's basically my Shatter the Script segment, kind of all kind of thrown into one, and in under 30 minutes for you guys, before I go into my 2020 vision. It's kind of nice to kind of have my own little spiel to where I'm not having to moderate a little bit. I can just kind of go on my tangents, because you know how I guys are. If you're a follower of this show, when I'm on my tangents, I I say some outlandish shit. And I've already started in this podcast, obviously. But let's get into the 2020 vision, and then we'll figure things out with what the Aggies are going to do this weekend in College Station. I talked about it a little bit. Kirk Cousins, Thursday Night Football, is your 2020 vision quarterback of the week. And it's purely because most of their games have been close ones, like one-score game. I think there was 8-point deficit from the Steelers game, like a 5-point deficit from the Chiefs game. And now you win this game in overtime. So just nail biters, a lot like what it was like in Minnesota when they had that bad year when he tore his Achilles. It was just these one-score games. I believe that was the year. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Kirk Cousins, goes out there, like I said, and throws for over 40 completions and over 500 yards. I think he was over 250 before the half. You want to talk about 2020 vision. I mean, this guy, watching him play, the first 3 weeks there was complaints that this dude didn't have a lot of muscle on the ball. And they were talking about, his Achilles doesn't seem like it's up to full health. He seems very hesitant, kind of limping off that foot a little bit, not getting as much oomph underneath the throw. But now you were seeing him, dude, he was throwing it too hard. I mean, 5 or 6 yard routes to Kyle Pitts, and this dude's firing them about 85 miles an hour, and they're catching it somehow. Shout out to the receivers. But this dude was ripping it across the field. And it looked like prime Kirk Cousins in prime time. And, I could throw Baker on here as well, obviously, because he just looked like a game manager in a good way, not in the critical way that everybody puts into light. The game manager is not a bad thing. But Kirk Cousins, man, he's making it work for his young group of boys over there. And I still think they could get Bijan more involved to kind of put some pressure off of Kirk Cousins. I'm still not sure what the hell is going on over there. But the Swag Surf Atlanta Falcons those two teams are playoff teams. The Buccaneers and the Falcons are playoff teams. Whether they make it or not, they're playing like it. And I'm excited to see that Kirk Cousins has taken a franchise that we like to see as good back in the Matt Ryan days. But I bet if I find let's see if I can find his thing while I'm on this rant right now, the next gen stats for Kirk Cousins. And I haven't been on this website in a while, or the chart section here, because I mean 42 completions is going to be insane. Yeah, here it is. Let me see if I can share the screen with you boys. 42 58, 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception with a CPOE of plus 8.2%. So let's share the screen for you guys if you're watching, and I'll explain it to you if you're not. So I'll be at the bottom of the screen if you guys are watching. So you have here, look at the touchdowns here. Look at the middle of the field. This is what I'm talking about with 2020 vision. This is what gets me going. Call me, what is the guy from Sleeper, the pass progression guy, whatever. What little tangent here. What's funny about him is I talked about it on my Challenge the Script show. He'll go to like College Football 25 and talk about reading your keys and reading different defenses and shell coverages, and it's always like in a home environment. And it's just funny to me that it's like I do the same thing, and I used to kind of not criticize. Like, I enjoy his content. I'm a follower of him, and I interact with his page. I just think it's just funny because I'm like, dude, you get in that stadium pulse environment, those audibles just go out the freaking window, dude. Like you're in this perfect scenario where you're at home, you get the claps and everything, but dog, like once you get in that top 15 stadium pulse, at least those audibles go out the window and you're calling a run, but it's 4 verticals and you don't even know it. But your receivers are running curls. That's a disaster for newcome sports followers. But yeah, look, middle of the field, man, he attacked it all night. I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 that are plus 7-ish yards over the middle of the field. And that's what you're looking for an effective 2020 vision quarterback in this segment. And of course, a completed deep shot down the field near 30 yards, a touchdown over 25 yards, and a couple other touchdowns under 10 yards. And checked it down effectively as well. This is the Kirk Cousins we miss. This is your fantasy football Kirk Cousins that everybody loves to pick up off the waivers in week 3 or 4 because he's playing like Sam Darnold currently is type of thing. And, this is why I like to highlight these things because, like I mentioned in the previous podcast, the QB epidemic is real. And when you see this in action, you just go, thank God there's still some of them left. Prescott, like I mentioned, Prescott does this a lot. Aaron Rodgers, shit. I mean, even the Baker Mayfields kind of do it a lot. But you look at like Russell Wilson, which the analyst attacks a lot for good reason, and Justin Fields and those types of quarterback, Anthony Richardson. It's like sidelines only, and the reason for that is because you have one read plays. So a lot of times one read plays are towards the outside of the box, of the tackle box. So you're kind of reading the numbers in the middle and saying, well, there's 6 guys in the box, I only got 5 plus the running back, and it's a run play. Check, check, check. We're swiping this one off, and we're doing the one read RPO. Or the RPO was called first in the huddle. And so you fake that mesh and chunk it on a flat route to the slot guy because you know that I'm reading that nickel corner or that outside corner that's in press and either throwing the slant or the out, to give an example. That's a one-read thing. But both of those completions, if thrown correctly, are outside the numbers in less than 10 yards, which is why you see this. Rollout plays. You want to get the quarterback mobile with these athletic quarterbacks in the epidemic category to where Fields is rolling out to the right, and you've got a comeback, you got like a curl in the slot, and you've got another crosser on the backside and maybe a flat guy. Well, where's that ball going? Well, no matter what, it's going to the outside of the middle. And granted, these scheme gurus have noticed the trends in the NFL, and they're adapting the best they can to this sort of thing. But these field generals left, which I shout out to whoever commented that on my TikTok, are missing Kirk Cousins because of this. They can play hero ball. We'll go back to full screen here. So like I said, a lot of passes in the middle of the field, just excellent football by Kirk Cousins. And not to shy away from Baker Mayfield, who has completely revived his career. You saw it in my power rankings. The guy has completely revamped his campaign, and he has found a home with Todd Bowles. That's his guy. There's no need to kind of draft. I mean, you could draft a guy in 2 or 3 years, but under veteran receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, you got your deep threat, and you got your slot guy. Then you got a receiving back who's done a fantastic job out of the backfield catching the ball, and a newcoming rookie running back who the Dallas Cowboys should have drafted, Bucky Irving, who, yes, he did fumble, but he's averaging like 5 or 6 yards a carry, I believe. I mean, I think it was 7 attempts for 50 yards, which surprisingly, Rachaad White had like 60-yard gain on Thursday night. But they have a formula for success, and it did work in this game. If you're a Buccaneers fan, don't freak out right now. You still get to play the Cowboys eventually and run 45 points on us. But, yeah, Baker looks incredible, man. That dude makes me want to crack a beer on the top of my skull and just start chugging Miller Lights. I mean, just pure freaking, I don't know, I guess you can call it redneck energy. I don't know. It's just Southern energy, I guess you could say. Oh my God, you said Southern energy. All right. Let's get into my final segment here, and then we'll wrap things up with the fantasy football stardom sit-ems from Hunter, our contributor, and wrap this thing up for you guys. By the way, do you guys like the new camera angle? I mean, I think it's great. I think it looks more official. I feel like Matt Walsh talking about politics here, or Charlie Kirk on his show. I should start calling this the Jared May show. That would be conceited. I like Shatter the Script for now. I'm spontaneous. I just change shit every 2 or 3 seconds. But all right, the number 25 Texas A&M Aggies versus the number 9 Missouri Tigers. Now, Missouri is the underdog by 2 points in this game. And people are wondering why. I mean, the Aggies They were losing in the fourth quarter to the Arkansas Razorbacks in a close game at a neutral site in a rivalry game. They call it a rivalry, but it's not. 12 out of the 13 went to the Aggies. Sorry, Gramps, I'm getting soap and socks for Christmas this year. I understand that. But you have some close matchups between Bowling Green and Arkansas on the A&M side. They lost to Notre Dame. Honestly, historically, you're looking at that and going, oof, why in the world are the Aggies even ranked? They're just kind of biding by and, scrapping for food. Well, the defense over there at A&M has what I've been 100% right about. It's amazing. It's a great defense. And they generate a lot of pressure. They have a cornerback with one of the highest PFF grades. I forget his name. But they're dominating on the defensive side of the ball. What they need is somebody on the offense to take control and compensate for that and take advantage with touchdowns instead of field goals or sacks at midfield. Because if you watch that game versus A&M and Arkansas, you would have saw that the Aggies were stopped at midfield like 6 times in a row. On the positive side of the field. In enemy territory. Penalties, a sack, mostly penalties, but just stuff they couldn't overcome with the freshman quarterback. And so they finally got some conversions late in the game, which is why the game was so close. If you looked at that game, you would have thought, or if you really watched that game and you're an unbiased fan, you would go, and I know a lot of people didn't watch it because there's probably better games out there, but you're watching that game and you're going, well, shit, this game shouldn't have been that close. This game should have been 38-17 A&M. But it was close because, once again, the spread strikes again. The spread, I believe, was 4.5 or something like that. But the Arkansas Razorbacks didn't allow it to cover. And that probably screwed a lot of bettors. But that's probably the reason why the game is so close. If you want to talk about shattering the script, that was probably the script. But yeah, into this Aggie versus Missouri game. Missouri is struggling, in my opinion. Yes, they are number 9 ranked. If they had beaten the shit out of teams that they've played so far, I think they would have risen in the rankings to 6 or 7. But maybe be above Miami, who played Virginia Tech close. But Missouri played Vanderbilt very close, who Vanderbilt, I think, either lost or played a non-conference team really poorly. And you've had these matchups with Missouri that have been close for no reason. They just shouldn't be close. And so I actually think both these teams are very similar going into this game. They're both talented, but you still have a freshman quarterback, Marcel Reed, leading this unit for the Aggies. And he's at home where he's played extremely well at home. And he's going to have to find a way to move the football in the air because they're going to key in on Le'Veon Moss. And if they can find a way to just scrap out a win, I don't care how ugly it is, but just scrap one out. I still think, I phrase this to the analysts, I think Marcel Reed is your guy, but I don't think it's this year. I think Weigman needs to finish out as the starter. I think he gives you the best chance to win. And I'm going to stand on the fact that I think he is a great college football quarterback. Great is too much of a word, honestly. I'm just going to say good. He is a competent quarterback who can read some defenses and make the throws that Marcel Reed doesn't really have the accuracy or the touch to make, as we saw in the previous 2 games. But Marcel Reed is doing his job. He's winning the games. Once they get a lead, they're kind of conserving and leaning on that defense. Once Weigman's back and you survive this game, you're able to kind of scrap out 3 or 4 more wins with their upcoming schedule, which I'll kind of go through here right now because I believe they don't really play a whole lot of teams in the upcoming weeks after this game. So let me check this real quick. Find A&M and Missouri, 11 a.m. on Saturday. Yeah, so next week they play Mississippi State. This is a bad team. This is one that you have to win. I don't care. You have to win by 15, 20 points. LSU the next week, which Tough matchup. We're just going to call it a tough matchup. South Carolina the following week. Average matchup. I think South Carolina is one of those teams that can play it close, but I don't think they're going to be match for match like A&M, especially on defense. Then you get New Mexico State and Auburn. I think at best, the next Missouri, Mississippi State, LSU, South Carolina, New Mexico State, and Auburn. Those 6 games, I think they win. I think they win 4, possibly 5. At best 5. At best 5 is what I'll say. But they're the Aggies. So I just think that, I think I'm going to go back down to earth. I think they win at least 4 of them, and they go 8-3 moving into the Texas game at the end of the year, which they can be spoilers for. But in this game, I think that they want you to take the Missouri money line because they're like, why in the world would Missouri not be favored against the Aggies? But you're playing in a hostile environment in College Station, and I really believe that the A&M Aggies pull out a very, very, very close one in this game. And they cover the spread as favorites. I'm leaning on the home crowd here, strictly. And Missouri quarterback talked in a press conference saying, well, our practice speaker's louder than them. No. Your practice speaker is expected. That's one of those things like, oh, yeah, turn on the speakers. Let's get things going. Ready, hit. I can still hear myself clap. No, 110,000 fans are going to be packed down, ready to go, drunk as shit, screaming for their lives, singing Mr. Brightside in every quarter. And you're going to walk out and you're going to hear Kanye West Power. Like, it's a hostile environment. It is not an easy place to play. Ask Nick Saban. They played him close like almost every single matchup. So you've struggled against those teams as Missouri, and you're coming in against A&M, who is kind of biding their time until Weigman comes back. I don't really understand how to say his freaking name. I'm just going to call him Weigman. But I've got the Aggies in this one. I said I'm taking them 27-26. That covers the spread, or whether that covers the spread or not, I really don't care. I got them 27-26 winning this one in a nail biter, a close one. No matter what, I think it's close. I don't care if it's 9-6. You got to win this game. You got to win this game if you want to be relevant with Elko and get some recruits next year. So we'll see how it happens. See how it shakes out. That's one of the first games in the morning. I'll be sighting in my rifle scope for the hunting season early in the morning to get back to that game, and I'll be from Buddy Turner. I'll be chugging my coffee for 4.5 hours. Hope you made it to the end of the episode, buddy, to hear that. All right, well, let's go look at the let's just start up sit-ems over here from our boy Hunter, who has enjoyed it. Micah Parsons rolled out week 5. Who would have thought? Startup sit-ems. All right, here we go. You got Geno Smith, and this is the startups. Your startups of the week. Geno Smith versus the New York Giants. He's been on a tear recently. Had a great Monday Night Football game versus the Lions. The Lions have kind of been iffy on defense, kind of whether they show up or not, but he's been great. Josh Jacobs. Now, yes, this is your first-round draft pick, or first or second-round draft pick, but he's playing the Rams, kind of a tormented defense as of late. Yes, they played the 49ers pretty well, but this is the game where you're going to be ahead and probably take some stress off of Jordan Love, and I think he gets involved in the backfield a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 catches. I think that's what Hunter's kind of aiming at here. So kind of like his last couple games have been duds. It's like don't move away from Josh Jacobs kind of atmosphere. So don't take it as, well, this dude's an idiot. You just told me to start your first or second round running back. No, what he's saying is if people who have lost confidence in him, you can regain it this weekend with a good matchup or with a good performance. And then you got Derrick Henry. Once again, obviously everybody's going to start him. So he's playing Cincinnati, who's had a really bad defense so far this year. And as someone who hates paying running backs, this is one of the guys that you should pay. Not as a Cowboy, but just it works for they're figuring out their formula. Like I mentioned in the power rankings, Derrick Henry is a force to be reckoned with, rushing for 200 yards against the Bills in their off game. So then Brandon Ayuk, who's been a disappointment so far this year, I think he likes that Arizona matchup. If you've noticed a trend lately with running backs and receivers and quarterbacks, is that anytime you play in Arizona, he's going to favor that. Jamar Chase, who's finally back into his rhythm, and people are maybe wondering, well, he had that one game, but he's just going to go back right back down to 3 or 4 catches for like 50 yards. No, he's thinking that Jamar Chase is going to be in his bag once again. So there's 3 like first or second round picks there where people are probably wondering, well, of course I'm going to start him. Those are his reasonings why. Brock Bowers at Denver. Now, usually he would move away from Denver because of PS2 at cornerback, and that defense held the Jets to 9 points. He's moved away from pass catchers, but these aren't the Raiders pass catchers. You're not going to have Devontae Adams in this game. Brock Bowers is probably going to get a lot of targets, and he's already got a big target share so far this year. A guy to look forward to is Alexander Mattison. They just moved Zamir White to like the back of the freaking line. So Steelers defense versus Dallas. I like this one a lot, unfortunately. I just think that the Steelers have the number 1 defense, but I just think that Dallas is too down bad this week to really do anything, and they're going to get embarrassed on Sunday Night Football, and the headlines are going to go crazy. So I like this pick a lot. And then we'll move on to our Hunter's sit-em list for the kids' picks. Derek Carr at Kansas City. The defense is going to have to lock in with all those injuries on Kansas City's offense. So he's saying there, now this is one of those things where Derek Carr election year is going to fade away. Maybe they move to 2-3 after a great 2-0 start. And then, of course, they look in 7 or 8 weeks, they go, wow, whoever lost to them in the first 2 weeks is awful. And they'd be right. Breece Hall at Minnesota. Not a lot of people are going to bench him. But Minnesota's Brian Flores' defense is just dialing up greatness right now. Chuba Hubbard, who's had the last 2 games, 20-plus games at fantasy, playing Chicago. I think Chicago's defense is underrated, and Hunter sees that, and they're kind of coming into their own here. They're scrappy, like the Titans will play it close. Same with the Bears. So he's kind of thinking that. I mean, Khalil Shakir, he's out this weekend, so kind of disregard that. Christian Kirk versus Indianapolis. Now, he had a great game against the Bills in garbage time, but Trevor Lawrence has got to figure out a way to get people the ball eventually. And he doesn't think it's this week. And Indianapolis, they have an average defense, but they played really well with Joe Flacco. So I guess we'll see how that goes. Pat Freiermuth versus Dallas. I think they're going to, they do a great job of targeting the middle of the field or protecting the middle of the field. And Justin Fields, as I mentioned before, this actually goes perfectly along with what I was saying, does not hit the middle of the field. And tight ends, that's where they live. And so I don't really see Pat Freiermuth getting like more than 3 receptions, maybe 1 or 2. But you got Overshown and Eric Kendricks and Damon Clark in the middle. I just think, and their rookie with the from Notre Dame. I'm not even going to say his name because I'm going to butcher it, but that's a pretty good linebacker unit, a young core that plays with a lot of energy. So I would avoid Pat Freiermuth if you're kind of looking for a free agent to target. And then the Cardinals defense at San Francisco. Of course you're going to sit the Cardinals defense. They're terrible. They can't stop a cold. And they don't have anybody. So that wraps up your stardom sit-ems from the kids' picks. And that wraps up our show. So, like I mentioned before the episode, if you're a first-time listener, you can follow us at the Shatter the Script podcast on Instagram and TikTok. We'll be posting videos and content on there, as well as our stardom sit-ems and college football picks. From all episodes, Challenge the Script, Stats and Scars. So you can follow us on those 2 platforms at Shatter the Script or on X, where we're very active in replies, STS_pod. Then you can follow us or subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts by searching the name Shatter the Script Podcast, and you'll see us on all those platforms. We'll pop up. Don't worry, we've had enough listeners listen to us. And you can find us there. And share it with your friends, man. I know the audience that I cater to. If you're looking for an outlet source that kind of provides this debunking narrative of the mainstream, you want to get away from listening to Stephen A. Smith, this is your source. And we're not bought and paid for by any organizations. I'm an independent. So I'm not going to have some scripted take. I'm going to tell you the truth. So like I've done this episode. But yeah, every Sunday morning I'll be releasing an episode for you guys. That way you guys are caught up on the action and you get those controversial takes from me. Stats and Scars every Thursday, 7 a.m. And Challenge the Script every Friday at 7 a.m. And, of course, mine on Sundays. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see y'all next Sunday. Oh, cheddar!